good morning. Good morning. If everyone could please take their seats. If everyone could please take their seats. Madam Clerk, we do have a quorum. Would you call the roll?
Blumenfield, Bonin, Buscaino, Cedillo, Englander, Herstassen, Weiser, Koretz, Krikorian, Martinez, O'Farrell, Price, Rodriguez, Rue, Wesson. 10 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you. First order of business.
Approval of the minutes.
Price moves, Rue seconds. Next.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
O'Farrell moves, Bonin seconds. That brings us where?
Mr. President, today is Tuesday and time for the flag salute.
Why don't we all rise? We'll be led today by David Rue.
Thank you, Mr. President. If everyone could rise and put your right hand over your heart, and ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's go through the agenda.
Mr. President, items 1 through 6 are items noticed for public hearing.
Do you have cards on these items?
There are cards on items 1, 2, and 3.
Okay, let's hold those items and vote on the remaining. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Continue.
Items 7 through 34 are items for which public hearings have been held. Please note that on item 15, the correct amount referenced in the fiscal impact statement should be $78,360,000 as reflected in the recommendation.
Okay, members, well, let's prepare to vote then. If you'd please open the roll,
7 through 34.
close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Mr. Buscaino?
If I may, Mr. President, we just approved the appointment of James Diamond to the Harbor Area Planning Commission. Commissioner Diamond, thank you so much for your advocacy, being a champion for the San Pedro community. A lot of work to be done in light of the San Pedro Community Plan update recently approved by this body. Looking forward to your partnership. ILWU member, advocate, champion for our harbor area communities. Congratulations. Looking forward to working with you. And I want to thank Mayor Garcetti for putting this nomination forward. Thank you, Mr. President.
Congratulations. Okay, let's move on.
That's right, that too.
Items 35 through 50 are items for which public hearings have been held. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Okay, so without objection, those items are now before this body. Do you have cards?
There are cards on items 35, 36, 39, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48.
Okay, let's hold those items. Vote on the remaining items. Please open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Continue.
Items 51 through 54 are items scheduled for closed session. Do you wish to hold those on the desk?
I'm going to defer to Mr. Krikorian.
Thank you, Mr. President. Items 51, 52, and 54 are settlements that have been considered by Budget and Finance, which recommends approval of the City Attorney's recommendations. All those matters can be resolved in open session unless members have questions or concerns. 53, I'd like to hold on the desk for the moment.
Okay, let's hold 53 for now and prepare to vote on the remaining items. Madam Clerk, would you like to go through them?
Yes, on item 51, in the case entitled Maria Castillo Zamora versus Ronald Dean Tull et al., there is a recommendation to expend $330,000 in settlement. On item 52, in the case entitled Gulnaz Yazdi versus the City of Los Angeles, there is a recommendation to expend $250,000 in settlement. And on item 54, in the case entitled Patrick Pascal versus the City of Los Angeles, there is a recommendation to expend $200,000 in settlement.
Thank you. Okay, let's prepare to vote on those items. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
So that brings us where?
Mr. President, that takes council back to presentations, items called special or general public comment.
Okay. Okay, before I go to the presentation portion, I'd like to just check in one more time with Mr. Krikorian on the last remaining item.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I checked with the city attorney on item 53, and the Budget and Finance Committee did also consider that matter, and we recommend approval of the city attorney's recommendation against settlement. So, and that can be done in open session
Okay,
as well.
Madam Clerk.
In the case entitled Greg Gonzalez, Mike Bilal, Jesse Soltero, and Juan Martinez versus the City of Los Angeles, there is a recommendation to reject the plaintiff's offer of settlement.
Okay, so on this item, let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Thank you. And at the request of Mr. Buscaino, let's send item 34 forthwith. At this point, I'd like to recognize Mr. Rue for presentation.
All the honorees. Good morning, everyone. And as all of our honorees are gathering to the dais, I am very excited to be here today with the Food Policy Council for the 7th Annual Food Day celebration.
Let's give him a round of applause. Welcome. Welcome.
And I want to thank all of my colleagues here for participating and for all our good food champions that are here today. Your honorees, your champions. Food Day is celebrated across this country every year to raise awareness on how the food system impacts our communities, our diets, our health, environment, animal welfare, and the economy. I deeply appreciate the work of the Food Policy Council with the elected officials and community leaders and their thoughtful policy and events like this that help improve healthy food access for all Angelenos. Finding ways to make sure that every resident in the city has access to food that is healthy, affordable, and fair. And I'm so honored today that when the Food Policy Council asked me to host Good Food Day 2017, because this is an issue that's been close to me for a very long time. Growing up, healthy food wasn't always possible. And there was a time when my family relied on food stamps. And there were times when my parents struggled to get healthy foods on the table for me and my siblings. I can't stress enough how important providing access to good food is. LA County is one of the top food-producing counties in the nation. However, we have the most food insecure people than any other county, where 1 in 4 children in Los Angeles go to bed hungry. But thanks to our recent actions, programs like the EBT are now accepted at all Los Angeles farmers markets, and the Healthy Neighborhood Market Network increases access to fresh and nutritious food to most of our vulnerable communities. This year's food theme is Future of Food, and features the new Good Food for All agenda. That agenda is the work of over 300 experts and community leaders working on food issues. The agenda calls for policymakers to advance goals to create a healthy, sustainable, and fair food system over the next 5 to 7 years. We in Los Angeles can lead the way to increase food access and a healthier city for all. Now, let me introduce Claire Fox, Executive Director of the Los Angeles Food Policy Council, to share a bit more about the Good Food for All agenda. Claire?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Councilmember Rue, for all of your support in elevating the importance of food in our lives. And good morning to all of you, council members. It's always an honor to come before you to talk about something that is so ubiquitous in our lives and so commonplace to all of us that sometimes we forget about its great cultural, economic, and health importance in our life. And that's food. And that's why we're here for Food Day, is to really elevate all of those issues. Council members, some of you were around 7 years ago when the LA Food Policy Council was created. Under the leadership of our previous mayor, Viragosa, and with the blessing of the city council, there was a food policy task force that created a visionary policy platform called the Good Food for All agenda, and this was back in 2010. I stand here today with some of the founding members of the LA Food Policy Council Leadership Board, also formerly Food Policy Task Force members. And this agenda that was created offered recommendations to the city on how to make food healthy, sustainable, affordable, and fair for all Angelenos. And here we stand 7 years later, and the good food movement has grown in leaps and bounds. I have to tell you that we had close to 700 RSVPs for Food Day this year at LA City Hall, so I hope you might be able to join us for the festivities outside where the real crowd and fun will be. But I think that just goes to show how many people are passionate about this issue and how many people are getting involved in this movement. And in the last 7 years, many new issues have emerged. For example, food waste. Today, the Board of Public Works is announcing efforts to zero food waste City Hall, and they're launching a food waste grant challenge so that no food goes to landfill where it poses a great environmental threat, and that we donate edible food to hunger relief organizations and compost the rest. This was not even an issue 7 years ago, and now we're making huge strides today. Still, we know that many challenges remain. Though we were able to pass and achieve universal EBT CalFresh at LA City Farmers Markets, thanks to you, and though we were able to start the Urban Agriculture Incentive Zone, applications due October 31st, thank you, council members, for your support on that. We know that unfortunately still low-income communities and many communities of color do not have adequate access to healthy food. And this is a human rights issue. This affects people's quality of life and the length of their life. We also know that climate change and non-regenerative agriculture threatens the future of our food supply. So we have a new agenda. We have ideas for you. You all have in front of you, I hope, a copy of the updated 2017 Good Food for All agenda. As Councilmember Rue noted, we talked to over 300 community leaders and experts to get their ideas. This includes farmers and scientists and advocates and some of our most impacted community members. So in these pages, council members, I hope you see opportunities for your leadership. I hope you are inspired to take action on the new Good Food for All agenda and help us tackle the very real issues of hunger and climate change and waste and equitable economic opportunity for all Angelenos, because we know that's what we need. So we hope you see food as a vehicle for change. We thank you for your ongoing leadership, and we will continue to be your ardent partner in this work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Claire, and thank you to the Food Policy Council for your collective work in building a good food movement here in Los Angeles. Now, I'd like to introduce the food champions for each of the council districts, your champions in your districts. And as I read the names of the champions from each of the districts, I invite you to go stand beside your council member on the horseshoe. But if your council member is not here, feel free to stand with me here at the podium. From Council District 1, we have David Foster, co-founder of the grocery store and Every Table. From Council District 2, we have Jessica and Ken Shea of the Vegan Street Fair. From Council District 3, we have Dr. Daniela Fritz and her students from the Lichman Career and Transition Center. From my very own Council District 4, we have Devora Browse, founder of Netia. From Council District 5, we have Allison Korn, Assistant Dean for the Experiential Education at the UCLA Food Law and Policy Clinic. From Council District 6, we have Randy and Jocelyn of Ella's Juice. From Council District 7, we have Adam Brooks from the Food Bank Manager for Mend. From Council District 8, we have Marshawn Peace Love Williams and Chef E. Double of Grilled Fresh. From Council District 9, we have Louis and Ariana Sanchez of Serve to Enjoy. From Council District 10, Mr. President, we have Glenn Corrado, founder
Yay,
of
hear
World
it? Let's give it up
Harvest
for
Food
Glenn.
Bank.
Yes.
From Council District 11, we have David King of the Venice Learning Garden. From Council District 12, we have New Horizons, Sam's Cafe, Shade Mokulo, and Nancy Jan. And they all gave us cookies. From Council District 13, we have Lauren and Peter Lemos of Wax Paper Company. And from Council District 14, we have Ariana Alcaraz of the Los Angeles Community Action Network. And last but not least, from Council District 15, we have Kelly Stromberg of Catalina Sea Ranch.
Let's give them all a big round of applause. We thank you so much. Thank you all.
Now, Mr. President, on behalf of the entire City Council, on all our behalf, I'd like to present this resolution declaring today, October 24th, 2017, as Food Day in Los Angeles. And if everyone could join us after council meeting at City Hall South Lawn, where you can meet with your good food champions and enjoy lunch provided by every table. Thank you.
Let's give them one more round of applause. Oh, I'm sorry. 1 second, Mr. Englander.
Thank you very much, colleagues. I know we weren't going to talk during this presentation, but I do. I've got somebody special here, and I want to say why. We all do, I know. But one of the things that David Rue mentioned was his family being on food stamps, and I was as well. And in fact, I could probably have 1,000 different menus for government cheese that used to come in a cardboard box, and that's all we had.
The big block.
But a lot of you, it's Food Day, but this is something a little different for me too, because we've got Sam's Cafe here. And for those of you that don't know, they're one of the largest and oldest nonprofits in the San Fernando Valley that services those with developmental disabilities. And not only do they have a culinary kitchen, which is phenomenal, and they are famous for their cookies that they sell in local grocery stores, and they brought some here today. But you all know what happened with my sister, and she was disabled, and right after she died, I found out about New Horizons right down the street from my house that cares for developmental disabilities and adults living with those kinds of issues, and I was shocked I didn't know about them to help my sister until after she passed away, and so I wanted to share why they're here and who they are, and I know we're not supposed to talk, but I get choked up every time I walk into New Horizons, and they're here today, and we have Sade and Nancy, and I just want to thank them for everything they're doing to make such a difference in so many vulnerable people's lives. So God bless you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Mr. Cedillo. Mr. Cedillo, Gilbert.
Mr. President, are we talking or not talking?
No, we're not supposed to.
We should all talk now. So go ahead, Mr. Cedillo.
Thanks, Mitch. We got a Dodger game.
Yeah. Briefly, everyone's going to enjoy a great lunch. We have transformation taking place over at the Hoover Triangle. It's on the border of the 1st District and the 10th and the 9th. And I want to invite everybody to come there to the Hoover Triangle. And when you get there, you're going to see a great place to eat. And you're going to come and see every table. And I want to invite all of you. You're going to enjoy the food today for lunch. But with that, I'd like to welcome David Foster to come up, a young man who was extremely successful on Wall Street, but is a man committed to service and decided to bring his talent, his ingenuity here to Los Angeles so that we could enjoy good quality food at a great price for everyone. Everyone, every block, every table. Thank you, David Foster. Congratulations.
Mr. Harris Dawson.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. I just wanted to take a second to recognize the honorees from the 8th District today who saw the food desert that we have in South LA and all the problems not as something to get upset about or not as something to complain about, but something to take as an opportunity. And so we have with us 2 young African-American entrepreneurs who started a California Caribbean fresh restaurant on the corner of West Boulevard and Slauson. You cannot get in there to get food if you show up very, very late in the day. They offer the freshest ingredients, the freshest vegetables that you can get almost anywhere in South LA. And so we're very, very thankful for Marshawn Peace Williams and Edwin Chef E.W., who've taken their talents from the finest restaurants in LA to South.
Give them a round of applause. Mr. O'Farrell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Really quickly, because I know we weren't supposed to do this, but Mr. Englander opened the floodgates, so I've got to brag about my honorees. But first, let me thank Claire Fox of the Food Policy Council. You and your team are doing amazing work spreading the gospel of healthy eating across the city of Los Angeles at affordable prices. Thank you. And Mr. Rue, thanks for bringing this forward. Very, very important. I want to really brag about Wax Paper, a restaurant in Elysian Valley in my district. And I have with me Lauren and Peter Lemos, who are the entrepreneurs that we're celebrating today. They are at the corner of Knox and Blake in Elysian Valley. They're about to open another restaurant in the coming months. That's going to be called Lingua Franca in the neighborhood along the Los Angeles River. They're also residents of the 13th. And they represent what's best in all of our entrepreneurs, the great work, and the entrepreneurs are what drives the Los Angeles economy. So I couldn't be happier to honor Peter and Lauren of Wax Paper today. Congratulations. You bet.
Mr. Weezar.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And first, thank you very much, Councilman Beru, for bringing to the attention this beautiful people who are doing wonderful work throughout the city, such important work. And our nominee for Council District 14 is Ariana Alcaraz. And she has a lot of fans here today. She created a rooftop garden in Skid Row. She oversees weekly produce markets in Skid Row and South LA. And she was one of the leaders to pass the EBT ordinance for the city of Los Angeles. Thank you to all who made that possible. And now people have access to farmers markets no matter what your economic background is, and that's the way it should be in the beautiful city of LA. Thank you so much. Congratulations, Ariana.
Mr. Price. Mr. Price.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too want to thank Claire and the Food Council and Councilman Rue for continuing to raise the issue and the importance of good food and healthy eating. And I'm honored to welcome to the council today 2 exciting entrepreneurs in our community who operate Serve to Enjoy. They opened their doors on 30th and Central in January of 2015. Their goal was to provide clients with delicious, healthy food, a good customer service at a reasonable price, and they have done that and then some. They've expanded their restaurant and catering business it started as a prep program where they serve local gyms and businesses, and they provide portioned meals to the community in a way that is unlike anything we've seen on Central Avenue. So welcome with me Luis and Ariana, owners of Serve to Enjoy, our food champions in CD9.
All right. Mr. Bonin.
Thank you, Mr. President. My honoree just said he's fine if I don't speak in council, but I told him I had already pressed the button, and so the detonator was about to go off. I'm very proud today to honor David King from the Venice Learning Garden, which is a community garden that teaches gardening and healthy food to people of all ages on the west side, from preschool all the way up to adults. I know Mr. Wesson has actually visited there in the past. It's a wonderful place, and David was one of the people who started this in 2001, 2002, and it has actually flourished. David has spent a lot of his time being an advocate for purity of seeds here in Los Angeles. He's the founding chair of the Seed Library of Los Angeles, which has 1,400 members now. And he was also instrumental in legislation passed by the state legislature last year, a state law regarding seed libraries. it's sort of appropriate that he's done so much work on seeds because he has literally planted the seed for community gardens at our schools on the west side. When he started the Learning Garden at Venice High, there really were no community gardens at the schools on the west side. And since then, they have flourished. And the first generation of them that flourished in the few years after he launched his at Venice High were all students and protégés of his. So he really planted seeds and watched them grow and spread the message of good and healthy food throughout Los Angeles. So I want to thank David.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Krikorian.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I am very pleased to be able to recognize the good food heroes for Council District 2 this year, Jessica and Ken Shea, who founded the Vegan Street Fair. Now, if the NoHo Arts District were not already the coolest part of the San Fernando Valley, and it is, if it weren't already that, it became so 3 years ago when Jessica and Ken brought the Vegan Street Fair there. It's a place where even non-vegans are welcome. So Joe, come on out to North Hollywood and enjoy some vegan corn dogs and, you know, cupcakes and even a beer garden there. So it's a party atmosphere that really spreads the word to so many people about the vegan opportunities there are with good eating. And so it's as Jessica and I were just discussing, this is an opportunity for people who aren't vegan, who aren't vegetarian, to maybe reconsider some of their assumptions about what constitutes good food and have a great time at the same time. So March 25th, mark all your calendars for the next Vegan Street Fair in North Hollywood. We're so pleased to be able to host this event every year for the last 3 years. 30,000 people have come out and learned more about the vegan lifestyle and vegan food thanks to Jessica and Ken. So our good food champions of CD2, Jessica and Ken Shea and the Vegan Street Fair. Congratulations.
Mr. Blumenfield.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I am proud to have with me and to honor Dr. Daniela Fritz. She started with LAUSD back in '08. She then became a special education teacher for students with moderate to severe disabilities at the Leachman School. Leachman is in my district, and it's in a fantastic school that serves people with disabilities. Well, she expressed an interest a number of years back in starting a garden, and she told her principal about it, and the principal basically pointed to a plot of land somewhere and said, yeah, go ahead, make an elective or something, probably thinking nothing would ever come of it. But she turned that around. She not only made it into an incredible garden, but since then, the students, the staff, and the community have built over 50 10x4 planter boxes. Her gardening elective turned into a horticultural program. They added chickens to the program, and they're now referred to as Horticultural and Animal Care at Leachman CTC, which is pretty amazing, a pretty amazing accomplishment. Together with her students, they raise plants from seeds, plant seasonal vegetables, grow succulents, take care of 26 chickens and 3 potbelly pigs, kind of crazy. And then they sell the fresh produce and eggs at the weekly farmers market on Thursdays between 10 and 12 at the Van Alden Garden Gate, which is open to the public. So they're not only providing an incredible service for these students, but they are also providing good food. And I'm proud to honor you here today, so congratulations and thank you.
Mr. Koretz.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. It's my honor to introduce Allison Korn of UCLA. And Allison is the clinical director for the Resnick Program for Food Law and Policy at UCLA Law School. She founded and directs UCLA Food Law and Policy Clinic, where law students develop and implement policy interventions to address challenges affecting our modern food system. The clinic students have worked with local food organizations, innovators, producers, and activists across Los Angeles, and their work prioritizes local food policy development. So let's give Allison a big hand.
Mr. Buscaino.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't know about you, but I'm getting hungry around here. Amazing work being done, the future of food in our great city. And we first thought about today's theme on the future of food. In talking to Jenny Chavez, my chief of staff, we immediately thought about Catalina Sea Ranch, which is the first aquaculture facility in the United States federal waters, right here off our San Pedro waters, and they're headquartered in Altasea and along the LA waterfront. The first aquaculture farm permitted in federal waters, preparing its first mussel harvest. We're anticipating this December, and they are also exploring the potential of farming giant sea kelp. In fact, Kelly here cannot stay for the festivities later today. She actually has to get back to the San Pedro waters, dive, and take a look at the kelp off our coast to see if it's a future food supply for us all. So Catalina Sea Ranch, we thank you, we recognize you. The future of food here in Los Angeles. When you think of mussels, get ready, because it's a new wave coming. I'm not talking about your biceps, Mr. President. I'm talking about the mussels off our coast. Thank you very much. Catalina Sea Ranch, congratulations.
Well, I guess I'll just kind of jump in right now. And first, let me thank David. Thank you for all that you've done. Thank you, Ms. Fox, for all of the work that you've done as well. I have with me today a young man by the name of Glenn Corrado, who's he's born in Taiwan, was with the Air Force. And sometimes in life, weird things happen, and you can take lemons and turn them into lemonade. Now, Glenn here had to perform community service work for some unpaid traffic tickets, and he did it at a food bank. At a food bank where people would come and they would get limited stuff. But he was so inspired that he created the World Harvest Food Bank, which is located on Venice Boulevard in my district, where you can go and get a wide variety of fruits and vegetables and rice, and you get an entire shopping cart for like $35. If you cannot afford it, if you volunteer at the food bank for 4 hours, you can get it for free. And I just really want to say that it's open like every day except Sunday from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and on Saturday from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. The food comes from Albertson and Vons and Whole Foods. He's always out hustling so that he can help the community. And for those of you that might have a sweet tooth, there's a cookie covered in chocolate called Black Thunder. And I love Black Thunder. Anyway, so if you want a good cookie, go ahead. Great guy. Let's give it up for Glenn from Council District 10.
Is that it, Mr. President? Thank you, Mr. President. And you know, since everyone introduced their honorees, I'm going to do a short introduction of mine, even though I'm going to do a longer version outside. I just wanted to recognize Deborah Browse because she does something amazing. We have lots of religious institutions throughout the city of Los Angeles, and because most religious institutions are tax exempt, and many of them have lots of ample land, and they don't do anything on it. So the great idea was to grow a farm. And so she has 31 different locations, from mosques, temples, churches, schools, religious schools that have land available, and she goes in, farms the land, but not only farms the land, but also teaches those who are in those institutions about it, and donates most of the food to whether it's a local food bank or used for the church itself. And when they donate to a local food bank, they also try to get them involved and to train, because it's not just about growing the food, it's about showing the sustainability of it and showing how farming in the cities can happen. And you know, and if anyone is interested, or if any of the council members have any religious institutions in their district that might be interested in participating, there is on November 5th at Temple Israel, Food, Faith, and Field Symposium. That's going to happen on November 5th. So please come on up, ask the Food Policy Council, Clara, or come to my honoree so you can learn more about it. So thank you to all the honorees, and thank you to all the council members for indulging. And there will be lunch outside. So feel free to join us afterwards for lunch. Thank you.
So now I'd like to recognize Mr. Bonin for our next presentation. Ms. Martinez, are you going to be part of the... Okay, so it's Mr. Bonin and Ms. Martinez.
I got some other stuff to do first. Hey, how you doing? Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning, colleagues. We're going from good food to being surrounded by some really amazing good people. I'm pleased to be joined today by Ms. Martinez and by representatives of our city's domestic violence task force. This is the 30th year that the nation is celebrating Domestic Violence Awareness Month. It was started 30 years ago to bring attention to a cause that at that time had very little attention, the problem of domestic and intimate partner violence. That nationwide movement spurred action, awareness, legislative proposals. Here in the city of Los Angeles, a little more than 2 decades ago, it led to the creation of the Domestic Violence Task Force, which we all have an appointee on. It led to the establishment of the Domestic Abuse Response Teams, the DART teams, which we now have in each of our community police stations. And it has led this body to consistently fight to try to backfill the year after year cuts in domestic violence prevention programs from the federal government, particularly shelters or safe havens for women who are survivors of and children who are survivors of domestic violence. It has been a very, very important thing here in Los Angeles, and I'm very glad that we have the opportunity here to acknowledge and celebrate Domestic Violence Awareness Month once again. As I said, I'm joined by the Domestic Violence Task Force, and these are people, women and men, who are doing the hard and the often emotionally grueling work every single day of making sure that victims and survivors are supported, that their stories are believed, and that they are safe from their abusers. On this 30th anniversary, we're acknowledging a particular facet of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Last year, we focused very much on homelessness, and this year there is an emphasis on drawing attention to the issue of domestic violence in the LGBTQ community. There is domestic violence among people of the same gender, just as there is in a male and female relationship. And sometimes it's even harder to deal with. There are particular nuances and dynamics, particularly when one partner is in the closet or when one partner feels that their relationship or their identity itself is not acknowledged, let alone the fact that there is abuse in that relationship. And so our honoree this year receiving the receiving the Marjorie Browdy Award will sort of be acknowledged as part of an effort to address that situation. But before we get to that, I want to introduce my co-presenter today, Nuri Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Bonin. Thank you, Mr. Bonin, for asking me to participate in your presentation this morning. I am very proud to be here today with you and recognize the work of the Domestic Violence Task Force in honor of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Last year, during Domestic Violence Awareness Month, we were in the middle of a presidential election, and as I mentioned in the past, these last past couple of weeks, my concerns over the impact that the choice of words of one of our presidential candidates was using to describe women in particular were very troubling for me and for many members of my community. Words do matter. And when we allow language that condones the groping of women, we subliminally encourage more aggressive behavior that can lead to violence against women or other partners. Our children need to see examples of respectful relationships. We need to encourage, teach, and promote healthy relationships, a healthy language, and a healthy actions towards one another. Because we have seen that over the year, the effects of the president's words in our most vulnerable communities, it is not a surprise that we have seen this presidency show and display hatred against immigrants because of his massive deportation efforts in so many of our communities. We know that immigrants across this country, particularly those without legal status in the United States, are afraid to report a crime to their local law enforcement agency because they are afraid to be deported. In Los Angeles, LAPD has noted a significant drop of crimes in the Latino communities. No person who is a victim of crime should be afraid to come forward. No perpetrator of domestic violence or sexual assault should walk free because their victim is undocumented and afraid of being separated from their loved ones simply because they're undocumented. It is because of this that I recently introduced a motion that seeks to look into these specific issues. Let's understand how pervasive this issue is and how we can ensure that communities feel safe enough to come forward and report a crime. If the community does not feel safe talking to LAPD, what resources can we promote that will allow them to become familiar with someone they can trust? Do the operators of our rape and domestic violence crisis have the tools to acknowledge and be able to understand the intricacies of immigration law? What are the issues that are stopping them from helping our victims? I am very, very intrigued to find what those answers are, and thank you very much for allowing me to say a few words, Mr. Bonin. Let's continue to promote healthy relationships in our families, and let's try to set the example for so many of our kids. It is very sad when I pick up my daughter after her after-school program at school and hear my daughter talk about her friends who are just 8 years old talk about their domestic violence situations at home. We have kids in our school system who are traumatized every day because someone in their home is being assaulted or beaten, and sometimes be made to feel like they're less than human. We need to set the example, and this task force is leading the way for us to talk about these very difficult issues at home. Thank you very much, Mr. Bonin.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Martinez. I'd now like to introduce Eve Sheedy of the City Attorney's Office, who's the chair of the Domestic Violence Task Force. Eve?
Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. Thanks to both Councilmember Bonin and Martinez for hosting this event. My name is Eve Sheedy. I'm Director of Domestic Violence Policy at the LA City Attorney's Office, and I'm the elected chair of the DV Task Force. To bring you up to date, on October 5th, we had a luncheon honoring the DART teams and some very special members of LAPD. You will receive this brochure, which has a description of all of their phenomenal work. We're also here today to honor someone even more special, Detective Yvonne Ortiz, who will be the recipient of our Dr. Marjorie Browdy Award. We're both very proud of being able to honor Yvonne and also being able to work with her. I do want to recognize we have a number of people from the task force and people who are supportive of Yvonne and of our work here, and if they could all stand up, or they were here, oh, they're here behind me.
Let's give them a round of applause.
So I just want to say this. The task force is the city's domestic violence coalition. It is made up of both members of public agencies and private nonprofits. Each council member is entitled to have an appointee on that task force, and some of you do not. That impacts your representation on the task force, and it makes our work harder. So I urge you, you've been very supportive as a body, but I urge you individually to make sure you support the task force. We support you on top of our regular jobs and so forth, and we really want to help the city move forward. So please be sure to make sure you have an appointee. So we're here in honor of Domestic Violence Awareness Month, so I want to share some information. Los Angeles Police Department fields approximately 48,000 domestic violence calls for service every single year. Broken down, that means a call to the police every 12 minutes of every hour of every single day of the year. Every day, yesterday, tomorrow, last weekend. Studies show that at least 1 in 4 victims who are physically injured do not call the police. And as Councilmember Martinez said, that number rises each day. If we talk about the two groups that were just mentioned, the undocumented community, the LGBTQ community, these are people who for very legitimate reasons may not reach out to police. Conservatively, that's at least 150,000 domestic violence victims in our city each year, and that's a low estimate. To protect those 150,000 survivors, we have a total of 473 domestic violence beds in the city of Los Angeles. That includes both emergency and transitional. 473. You recently voted to permit HCID to release an RFP that for the first time in a very long time increases funding and resources for domestic violence. The RFP proposes spending just over $5 million on services for domestic violence and human trafficking, an amount that was promised to the task force in support of the task force in the city 21 years ago when the council first created the DV task force. Those funds would give the city 2 additional DV shelters and 2 human trafficking shelters, which I believe will be amongst the first in the country. You will ultimately be asked to approve this funding increase of about $2.8 million, and I can assure you I will be back to talk to you about that. When the time comes, please vote to increase this funding. We ask for your support today during Domestic Violence Awareness Month, but also on every other day when we're not in front of council, remembering that at least every 12 minutes, a victim of domestic violence is calling the police for help, and at least 4 other survivors who aren't calling the police also need and deserve our help. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Eve. One of the founders of the Domestic Violence Task Force, one of the real driving forces behind raising awareness and calling people to action on this issue was Dr. Marjorie Browdy, who was the wife of my predecessor, Marvin Browdy. And so every year, the task force honors a person or an organization who's gone above and beyond in serving the cause of fighting domestic violence with the Dr. Marjorie Browdy Award. And we are about to present that award, and we are going to be presenting it to Detective Yvonne Ortiz. The detective embodies the theme and the spirit of the award, which is innovative collaboration in serving victims of domestic violence. She is the LAPD's domestic violence coordinator and the law enforcement liaison to this task force. She was nominated by 2 separate agencies for this award, the Long Beach Gay and Lesbian Center and the Los Angeles Gay and Lesbian Center. Before I say any more, I'd like to ask Annabelle Martinez from the LGBT Center of Los Angeles to explain why they nominated her and to introduce the detective.
Good morning, everybody. Detective Yvonne Ortiz is the person who cares deeply about her job and about the impact that violence has on the community she works with. Detective Ortiz has been a reliable and strong supporter of LGBTQ survivors of domestic violence. She regularly attends the LGBT DV Issues Committee meetings, as well as the Los Angeles City and Council General meetings. Detective Ortiz is always engaged in conversation and is eager to support LGBTQ survivors in her role as the domestic violence coordinator. At the LAPD LGBTQ Safety and Health Fair, Detective Ortiz and I co-facilitated our workshop on healthy relationship dynamics to a group of community members where she took the time to speak with LGBTQ attendees. She was eager to connect community members to resources, to provide support, and to have meaningful conversations with LGBTQ community members. Staff from the LGBTQ Center of Long Beach and the Los Angeles LGBTQ Center have been consistently able to turn to Detective Ortiz when support is needed for our clients. She has consistently gone above and beyond, including meeting with survivors who have experienced barriers and challenges accessing resources. She consistently includes LGBTQ domestic violence issues, where she's involved in coordinating trainings for LAPD officers. She is dedicated to creating visibility for the experiences of all survivors by ensuring that the barriers LGBTQ survivors face are addressed. Detective Ortiz also makes it a point to regularly show her appreciation for community collaboration. Detective Ortiz is incredibly deserving of recognition for the work that she has done to support LGBTQ survivors, many of whom, but for her, would not have received any support. Please join me in celebrating Detective Yvonne Ortiz for her inclusive work to support all domestic violence survivors.
So now, colleagues, we would like to officially present the Dr. Marjorie Browdy Award to Detective Ortiz. Detective? Thank you. Mary? Give you a photo.
Thank you very much. I'm so honored to be standing here today to receive this Marjorie Browdy Award. Serving my community for the past 23 years has been a joy and a privilege that I am so grateful for each and every day. However, this would not be possible without all of the amazing people in the city, especially those standing behind me today. Thank you to the city's Domestic Violence Task Force for this recognition and the heartfelt nomination from both Mieko Faley from the Los Angeles LGBT Center and Gio Martinez from the LGBT Center of Long Beach. Like many of the individuals in their organizations have served and continue to serve, I too, as a young child, would have benefited from their education, their leadership, and their advocacy. Like the LGBT centers, I value the tireless work that we all provide to victims of domestic violence. Our community matters, the men and women in blue, and those that comprise of our citywide domestic abuse response teams, our sexual assault response teams, our shelters, our forensic nurses, our prosecutors, and the list can go on and on. Unfortunately, we are never short of those seeking help. It is heartbreaking that 1 in 15 children are exposed to domestic violence each year, that 1 in 4 women will experience domestic violence during her lifetime, and that domestic violence is the 3rd leading cause of homelessness amongst families. What is remarkable are the people standing before you today who make it their mission, in part, that no survivor is alone in their aloneness, in their fear, in their anxiety, and in their pain. Thank you again for this honor. It is good for the entire community because it reminds us all how incredibly important our resources are to those of all ages experiencing violence and seeking empowering information that lends to positive outcomes. And lastly, I just want to share a quote that is dear to my heart. I leave you with the quote from Shannon Elder. One of the most important things you can do on this earth is to let people know that they are not alone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Oh, thank you very much. Mr. Buscaino.
Thank you for the presentation to our colleagues, Ms. Martinez, Mr. Bonin. Thank you to those who took part of this presentation. You are angels in the city of Los Angeles. Appreciate your advocacy and your champion in leading this effort to raise awareness of domestic violence. Colleagues, you know, as one of the most dreaded radio calls that I remember handling working the beat were domestic violence calls. And every year we recognize this day, and every year it reminds me of that one domestic violence call I handled. screaming woman, domestic violence, code 3, in the lower section of San Pedro on Peck Avenue. And we responded, my partner and I, which was actually, is indicated one of the most, dangerous radio calls a police officer can handle today. We respond, girlfriend bloody, we take the boyfriend into custody, provided the necessary services for the victim, and I believe it was 6 or 8 months later, reading in the newspaper that that same victim fell to a murder-suicide. And again, it reminds us of that cycle of violence, and this is exactly what we need to really pay close attention to the domestic violence issues facing the city and this country, and do everything we can to reach out to the victims and indicate that we are here as a city family to love, embrace, and support you each step forward. So thank you for the presentation, and congratulations on your award, your advocacy. We love you. God bless you, and please continue to be safe. Thank you, Mr. President.
No, thank you very much. Thank you again. Thank you. Thank you for that presentation. Also, Madam Clerk, can we go ahead and send items 45 and 47 forthwith? Great, thank you very much. 45 and 47. Mr. Kretz.
Can we also send item 50 forthwith?
Okay, yeah, 50 forthwith without objection. That'll be the order. All right, thank you very much. Now we have some speakers for general public comment, I believe. We'll go ahead and go to Mr. Previn. I'm sorry, you're multiple as well. We'll do them all. So items 43, 44. Well, we'll just go to all of them.
Thank you. Thank you. It's Eric Previn from CD2. Very nice presentations today. Approximately an hour and change. I appreciate both of those issues, the food desert as well as the domestic violence. Item 43, as you know, is involving the Department of Building and Safety. And sometimes we have to provide permits, and then we do refunds occasionally. Like yesterday, they did one up in Budget and Finance for a group called Iconics LLC, which is part of City Century LLC. But the point I'm trying to make is, when the group that is seeking a refund from Department of Building and Safety seeks that refund, we have to check to see why they would be given such a robust, in this case, 50%, $160,000 refund. And when we looked closely, it's because, partially, they're very, very nice people. It is Joseph Lynn, who has been donating prodigiously to Mayor Garcetti, to Mr. Bonin, to Mr. O'Farrell, to Mr. Cedillo, and there's one other I can't remember, but nonetheless, he knows how to stick the money in the envelope and say thank you for being a diligent supporter of his work. And so, the public naturally needs to hear that. Now, when we have these cases whizzing by, and we did notice on item 54 today, Mr. Pascal was settled out at $200,000.
We've already voted on item 54, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir. You don't need to shut my mic off when you make an interruption, do you? You can.
Can you go back to the items?
Well, sir, I am, but you
Not a
pushed
dialogue
through
thing.
item 45 forthwith, which is inappropriate because we did sign up on it, and that was the item about the Porter Ranch Company. And you're reducing from 24 days to 10 days, and now you're going forthwith on an item for them. So I don't think that's appropriate, quite frankly. And item number 40, the other one you pushed through was 45 and 43. Oh, well, no, I'm not sure. In any case, 46, Mr. Buscaino is once again helping the neighborhood with some funds, but he's refusing to disclose in the agenda item how many or how much. So I think it's better to just simply state it, and then we don't have to call Office of Finance and ask for the balance in that account. It's just a more open and transparent way to go, and I think the public appreciates it. It was 47, sir, that you jammed through quickly. That is Waste Management, as you know, has been holding office hours up in your office, which is great in CD12, and I think the residents probably appreciate that. Mr. Berghoff obviously appreciates that. But the public in other districts are feuding with Waste Management, who are charging $200 get the big thing fees out into the street. If you don't, you get penalized, and there's a neighbor in my area who's livid, and I directed her to CD12, where you're having office hours for Waste Management. So thank you for that, sir. I wonder if those additional salary money and overtime have anything to do with it. And once again, sir, I want to apologize for identifying Phil Englander as a man who gave $70,000 of Ford trucks to the LAPD.
And this is not on one of the agenda items, is it?
Go ahead, go to general public comment, please.
General public comment, I would just like to, thank you for turning the mic on. In general public comment, I would just like to request that Mr. Falble take a close look at the agenda before these meetings so that he does not stumble and try to interrupt where he feels that it's inappropriate, but it's not. And so that's my point. Now, going back to the issue upstairs with Iconics LLC, I would ask LADBS and it's not, I don't think it's come before this body yet, but it needs to be thrown back so we can look more closely at why in the world, when they've done the plan check and then they have not done the verification on some inspections, they should get back 160 grand. They also spent, for the record, sir, $400,000 lobbying. That's the group City Century LLC, or Iconics, ICONIX LLC. It's a very well-regarded place. In 2012, the LA Times was bragging about the high-rise full of luxury condos. They were going to get 1,000 a square foot back then. Now, they lowered the but now it's 161 units. It's 24 stories high. So they're going to redesign it a little bit, but they shouldn't be taking the money back because we're never going to get that back. And this is one of the little revolving facilities down here that do not serve the public's interests. So thank you. And by the way, $450,000 to Taste of Soul over a period of 5 years is excessive.
Thank you, Mr.
All right, thank you very much. Your time is up. Next speaker, please. John Walsh. One, 2, 3, 35, 36, 39, 48 in general public comment.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org or J. Walsh Confidential, tweeting at Hollywood Dems. And as far as the agenda is concerned, after this display, 1 hour long display of nauseating self-congratulation, now we're going to actually get into the agenda. Of course, you're not going to comment on anything. The lighting districts are fairly well organized. See, when you do a good job, I'm not one of these white guys that, "Oh, you're a bunch of crooks. Let's have some more white people on here." If you do a good job, I say you do a good job, and I've been here since 1976, and the lighting has been good. Number 29, this is parking restrictions.
Mr. President, Mr. Walsh, number 29's already been voted on.
Okay, what did you say, which items did you say that I could speak on?
It was 35, 36, 39, and 48.
35, 36, 39,
And item 1.
and 48. Okay. Number 35, establishing the hearing date for the Eagle Rock Boulevard. Well, they don't care much about areas of the city that are east of La Brea. 39, these are rent escrow. You do a good job on rental issues. And generally, I'm not here, incidentally. You know how they squeeze every second out, and then all of a sudden they walk away. Well, I wrap this 45 seconds up and give them to you. I give them back to you because I'm not here to use every damn second. On the 1 minute, I will use the full amount of time. As you know, the county the city sent people down, the fire department. You know what they did down there? Nothing. Nothing. When they were sitting here looking embarrassed, they did nothing because there was nothing for them to do but to sit there with their finger up their ass until they were sent back. And David Sennheiser, who gets down on his knees and worships the mayor's penis from afar because he's gay as a goose.
Okay, you know what, Mr. Walsh, that's not under the city's purview, so stick to items that are under the purview of this body only. Thank you.
And I'm telling you, scumbag.
All right, Mr. Herman. I'll remind you to stick to the items. Don't yell on the microphone. Make sure that it's items that are under the purview of this body, and stick to the items for the cards which you spill out speaker cards for. Thank you very much.
Sir, would you repeat the numbers, please? You repeated them for the other guests.
36, 39,
Can you fix my
43,
time,
44, 45, 47, 48, and then general public comment.
So I'd like to shed the light on all these conditions of new lighting under the Spirit Awakening Foundation. It's good to have light in CD 9. Again, Spirit Awakening Foundation. What about on item 3, CD 3, more lighting? Thank you, Spirit Awakening Foundation. And what about on item 4, CD 666, more spiritual lighting? And then let me go to the back now to my other further items under non-agenda items not held for consent. So I have here in my hand the so-called mitigated negative declaration, sir. And such measures and management called PLUM have disrupted the lives of many people. And then I'm going to go into my other items.
When you do a good job of rent escrow, I just want to say, nah, 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 nah. Rent escrow is a great thing to do for everyone. Provide them adequate housing and adequate clean homes. Thank you. Nah, 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 nah.
And then I go towards the back under all those court fees and settlements, because item 54 wasn't heard for the record. Wasn't heard for the record.
The settlement
Keebler.
items have already had public comment and been voted on and open already.
Is it, sir? There was one left. That's public comment, 54.
Incorrect. They've all been disposed
Okay,
of.
then I'll bypass it since you don't like me to speak on it, Mr. Keebler. Let me go to item 49, Rodriguez and Koretz. Thank you, Mr. Koretz. When you do a good job, I got nothing bad to say. Thank you. However, when I go to the final maps, fuck all you too. And then I go back to item in CD 11, a resolution which I really don't care about because CD 11 is not my residency. However, for the record, in CD 11, which belongs to the Councilman Mike Bonin regarding, once again, CD 11, item 44, the so-called Reduction Bluff property located off of Santa Monica that soon will have a calamity of a fall. You know that great song that we hear? What is it called? Yeah, that's what it's called. It's called Streetlights Falling. Now my general public comment.
That included your general public comment. We had the 3 minutes up, did we not? Oh, was one more? Okay.
What a fucking asshole. I like the dark side. I like all the wicked things I'm doing. I love to be wicked. I love the wild side.
And this has
of
nothing
what
to
I
do with anything in the subject matter jurisdiction of the city.
Okay, so we've already given you a warning, so your time's up. Have a seat. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Sergeants, can you please show him to his seat? Now, he's still disrupting the meeting. Thank you very much.
Indeed. And he's
Still
continuing to
disrupting the meeting.
shout
Go ahead and
as
have
he
a
walks
seat.
backwards down
Herman,
the aisle.
Have a seat.
And
Have
he's
a seat.
continuing to shout.
Okay, now you're out of here. Sergeants, can you please go ahead and escort
And
him
he's
out?
still shouting.
He's been
been
warned.
instructed to leave. He's been warned 2 or 3 times, and he's still shouting and not leaving. And he's still disrupting our meeting because he's shouting and we can't continue. And just in case the mics aren't picking it up, he's still shouting as he very slowly leaves. And he's shouting still as he leaves, continuously walking backwards, obviously in an attempt to slow down the meeting. And still shouting all the way out. Still shouting and still disrupting our meeting as he leaves. And he's finally out.
All righty. So we're going to go ahead and vote on items 1, 2, 3, 35, 36, 39, 43, 45, 46, 47, and 48. Go ahead and open the roll on those items. Okay, open the roll. We'll close the roll and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Those are approved. Thank you very much. And then we have one card on one item. Item 44. Jimmy Ordaz. Thank you for your patience. Come on up.
Thank you for your time. I just here in representation of the Building 354 4th Avenue. I just wanted to notify everybody that we've received all the signatures required, and all the repairs for the community, with the exception of 3 units, have been completed. We did have to file THP, which actually starts today, and we have all 3 units with the remediation process started today. We're asking for the rent restoration for the remaining units. All common area repairs have been signed off. They were actually signed off on the same day that unfortunately we went into REAP.
Okay.
Thank you.
We're gonna go ahead then, and we'll continue this item for you for another 2 weeks. So give you some time to meet with the council office and perhaps the department on it. If that works for you, that'll be November 7th. Okay. Then without objection, that'll be the order. Okay. Thank you very much. And then we have one more card for general public comment, and it's Roxana Stroska. Roxana, are you still here? No longer here. Okay. All right, thank you very much. So with that, colleagues, that should conclude the agenda. We have motions for posting and referral?
Yes, we have motions for posting and referral.
All right, do we have any announcements? Colleagues, any announcements? No World Series wishes for the Dodgers? Go Dodgers. All right. And do we have any adjourning motions? We do. We can get everybody in council to please rise for adjourning motions. Can everybody please rise? Councilmember O'Farrell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. It is with great sadness that the Hollywood community mourns the passing of Suthiporn Tu Sunkami. He is the founder and owner and operator of Jitlada, an institution in Los Angeles, a Thai restaurant in the heart of Hollywood in Thai Town. And he was the chef known for elevating Thai cuisine in Los Angeles to new heights. Sunkami was one of 12 siblings from Nakhon Si Thammarat province in southern Thailand. He started cooking when he was around 5 years old, first learning to peel garlic and chilies, cut lemongrass and picked turmeric bulbs for his grandparents, he frequently climbed trees to bring fresh tamarind to his grandmother to make curries. He watched her put chilies and spices in the mortar and learned how to make kua kling from his grandmother, a dish that draws hours-long wait times outside his Sunset Boulevard restaurant. As the eldest sibling, he often cooked for his brothers and sisters, and while in Thailand, Sukunkami worked at restaurants and also as a tour guide before coming to the United States to work with his sister Sarantip Jazz Singh Sanong at Jitlada. The siblings took over the Jitlada restaurant in '06 with Sukunkami in the kitchen and Singh Sanong running the front of the house. Sukunkami quickly made a name for himself with an exquisite ability to deliver spice in southern Thai dishes laced with chilies and spices. He caught the attention of Times restaurant critic Jonathan Gold, who has included Jitlada on his 101 best restaurants lists every single year. We recently honored Jitlada in June as part of the city's Immigrant Heritage Month. In October of 2014, we held my monthly lunch bunch at Jitlada, where we honor homegrown mom-and-pop entrepreneur restaurants that serve the neighborhood. Chef Tu passed away on Wednesday, October 18th, after a battle with lung cancer at the very young age of 66. He is survived by his wife, An Ranchani Sukunkami, his daughters Pearl Sataranan and Jarataporn, Sugar Sukunkami, sister Singh Sanong, and multiple brothers, sisters, and nieces and nephews. May he rest in peace, but Jitlada will carry on as the iconic institution that it is. Thank you.
Looking for any other adjourning motions? Seeing none, that concludes this council meeting, and we are adjourned. Thank you. Be safe.